remember of that visit. You know, it kind of came and went, and actually the pièce de résistance was to meet Ray Palmer in Amherst, Wisconsin. You know, Ray Palmer was the guy who brought us The Shaver Mystery, was one of the early publishers of magazines about UFOs.
Wow, what a road trip, Gene.
What a road trip. And getting to Ray Palmer's house was just something else, because he lived in this small country town in Wisconsin, Amherst, Wisconsin. He lived in this beautiful farmhouse with a large picture window. And I got to think this guy had to be pretty rich. Although he always claimed to be somewhat poverty-stricken. I mean, after all, it's not as if he worked at jobs that you'd become wealthy at. You know, being the editor of a magazine, especially a science fiction magazine, I don't think that was the source of fame and fortune. Or maybe houses were cheap over there. Or maybe he rented. I didn't know. But, you know, Ray Palmer's another story, except Ray Palmer also was one of those guys who was telling us that the ET answer to the UFO mystery was not where it's at. One of the early people who did that, before John Keel, before Jaques Vallee, before others who had these various theories. Now, about you, Chris, I'm going to put you in the hot seat for a few minutes. Okay?
Okay.
And the thing I'm going to ask you is, when you first started getting interested in UFOs, taking it seriously, did you adopt the ETH as a possible answer, or what?
Yeah, that was my, I guess, knee-jerk inclination as a kid to, because I am an experiencer. I had, as I described, I think in my first appearance as a guest on the Paracast, I described a very riveting experience I had at 7 years old, and I just assumed that we were dealing with some sort of off-planet non-human intelligence, and I devoured every UFO book I could get my hands on as a kid, all through the 60s, and Anatomy of a Phenomenon was one of those books. That's how I first learned of Dr. Vallee, and of course, Passport to Magonia was quite an eye-opener for me. I read the book some years after it came out, I think in late junior high, early high school. I was able to get a copy of it, and it really opened up my thinking. I don't think it pulled me completely away from the ETH at that point, but it wasn't until I started my own personal private investigation in the San Luis Valley that I pretty much left the ETH behind to some extent.
I'll tell you what, Chris, to recover old ground, what is it about San Luis Valley that made you feel, you know what, the traditional explanations we've had about UFOs, maybe it did not apply?
Well, it was the synchronicity. It was the tricksterish elements. It was the nonsensical nature of some of the reports, some of the descriptions. Within 2 weeks of doing full-time investigative work for a small newspaper, actually, I realized that the extraterrestrial hypothesis didn't even come close to explaining the variety and intensity of events that I had been exposed to and was actually personally investigating. And the yellow helicopter event was pretty much the nail in the coffin for my particular, view of the phenomenon. Interviewing a family who had a mutilated cow 13 years prior and seeing this antique yellow helicopter fly over their house in 1980. Then the following day, typing up my notes from my interview and having what appeared to be the same helicopter fly over my house. I've really not looked back at the ETH ever since that particular event. I mean, that really had quite an impact on my thinking. And I must say that between Vallee and Keel, David Perkins would be the only other person that I could posit as a real major source of my thinking. And people have asked me, well, if you could have dinner with three people, who would they be? Well, Jaques Vallee has been one of the people on my list for many years.
I'll tell you what, when he comes on the show, go ahead, invite him to dinner.
I will.
Okay.
That would be great. I'd love to.
Actually, I think I had lunch with J. Allen Hynek. How about that?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was lunch or dinner. This is back in the 1970s. I interviewed him a couple of times, and we had pleasant conversations. And at that point, we thought of J. Allen Hynek as very traditional in his UFO interests. as someone who started out as a skeptic, became convinced there was something strange going on, and then in his conversation, in the patter that we had during this interview I did with him, he hinted that there was something more to UFOs than E.T. It was maybe only part of the picture, maybe not an invalid part, but part of the picture. Unfortunately, he wasn't around long enough for, I guess, this feeling to germinate, although I gather he did convey similar thoughts to people he worked with at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, he mentioned, I think, to Jerry Clark that he felt elementals may be behind the UFO phenomenon, which indicates to me, if true, that Jaques Vallee's thinking finally got through to Hynek and finally influenced him towards the end of his life.
Well, it is that or just his independent research, because obviously he was looking at an extraordinary amount of cases, a lot of fascinating possibilities, and maybe he had to come to the decision also.
That's possible.
Sure. And I know we have a lot of new listeners since we joined the GCN network. And, you know, we joined the GCN network this past summer. And those of you who have been interested in the paranormal, when we cover UFOs, I know a lot of people think, yeah, well, spaceships, UFOs equals spaceships. It's the perfect equation. But you know what's perfect? It's perfect that we have to take care of some business. Coming up later in this episode, Dr. Jaques Vallee. I'm Gene Steinberg. The co-host is Chris O'Brien. You're in
the Paracast.
Hi, this is Tamar from Namecheap. We're a domain name and web hosting company, and we really care about our customers. With domain name purchases, Namecheap offers free SSL and free WhoisGuard for a year to protect your identity from spammers. Most importantly, we care about you. If you'd like to learn more, please visit us at radio.namecheap.com, radio.namecheap.com for web hosting and domain name specials. You can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/Namecheap or become a fan of ours on Facebook at facebook.com/Namecheap. See you online.
Get 9 hand-picked super quality graphic apps for your Mac for just $39.99, a 91% discount. These apps include vector drawing, brochure design, smart screen capturing, HDR photo optimizing, preparing photos for print and framing, creating posters, postcards, and lots more, including a bonus DVD library. These are top-rated, best-in-class apps. From now till the end of November, get them all for only $39.99 from radio.macgraphphoto.com. That's radio.macgraphphoto.com.
Gold isn't for you? Ted Anderson, president of Midas Resources, one of the world's premier gold and precious metal investing firms. I get it. You wouldn't buy gold if you believed that the government is doing a great job, that the Fed will stop handing out trillions of dollars like bailout candy, that Social Security would be there for you. That's not what's happening. You might even pass on gold if the stimulus package wouldn't fuel inflation, or that the dollar wouldn't lose value, or that your retirement would be secure. If all looks rosy to you, then now is not the time to buy gold. For the realist, there have never been more sobering reasons to diversify with gold. Since 2001, the U.S. dollar index has tanked 30% while gold has risen 300%. Right now, savvy investors are adding gold to their portfolios. You should too. Find out what they know. Call us and I'll send you 10 reasons why gold will do very well, free. 800-686-2237. 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Hello, Alex Jones has told you about the delicious, safe, easy-to-fix, and very storable food from eFoods Direct. He's also told you that eFoods Direct has the best food on the planet. Well, here's the great news. It's that time of year, and their holiday special is here. 2 holiday-priced packs for you to put into your reserve for a secure future or share with others. The first is a 6-month bulk supply in number 10 cans, and the second is a 5-week supply of quick and easy meals, including delicious bakery items shipped in heavy-duty totes. Both are special values for the holidays. When you order 2 or more of these special holiday packs, you'll get free shipping on the entire order. These holiday packs are always special combinations of food that are not available at any other time of the year. Call 800-409-5633. On the web, efoodsdirect.com/Alex. That's 800-409-5633. On the web, efoodsdirect.com/Alex.
Question: what would you rather drink? Acidic water, which burns holes in your body and causes loss of bone mass, or alkaline water, which promotes high energy and vibrant health? The answer is clear. And if you're drinking acidic water, you're helping cancer cells and bacteria to grow out of control. AlkaVision Plasma pH drops combine a unique formula of the most alkaline minerals. Using Plasma pH drops is the best way to alkalize your water and help you get rid of acid and regain your health and energy. Simply put 10 drops in the water you drink to raise the pH to a healthy alkaline level. Most experts agree that the water you drink should be at a pH level of 8 or higher. Disease organisms like bacteria, viruses, or cancer cannot survive in an alkaline high pH environment. Order your bottle of AlkaVision Plasma pH drops now by going directly to alkavision.com. That's ALKA vision.com, or by calling 269-409-1776. Again, 269-409-1776.
On air, online, and on demand. We are the GCN Radio Network.
We want to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com. Get in on all the action at forum.theparacast.com.
Coming up later in this episode, we will talk to Jaques Vallee. He's co-author of a new book called Wonders in the Sky with Chris Aubeck. And we hope to have Chris on the Paracast in the near future. We're focusing on Jaques this particular time. But what Chris O'Brien, my co-host, and I have been doing is kind of acquainting a lot of our new listeners. I know that our listenership has grown by leaps and bounds since we joined the GCN network. As a result, we're talking about things that may sound Greek or extraterrestrial or interdimensional to some people. Because so many people, when they think of UFOs, as I said, the practical equation is that UFOs equal spaceships. Can't be anything else. Spaceships. And we're saying, you know what? Yeah, we're not dismissing the possibility that ET is out there. I mean, now you heard a few weeks ago about the discovery of what might be called the Goldilocks planet. Not too hot, not too cold, what they call in Star Trek the M-type planet. The one that would possibly harbor intelligent life like our own. This seems to indicate that, heck, the galaxy is proliferated with intelligent species. We're talking about water on the moon, water on Mars. Life is normal. But in the UFO business, it's not that easy. Right, Chris?
That's absolutely right, Gene. It isn't that easy. It's a very complicated scenario, and I've said for many years that I think we owe it to ourselves to exhaust all potential closed system explanations before we get human-centric enough to jump off planet and think anything out there is interested in this primitive, violent, misogynist planet.
Don't hold back, Chris. Tell us what you really think about this planet.
We've got a long way to go, Gene.
Also, if I was ET, and I was watching what's going on here, assuming that our civilization's development is not normal, I guess we kind of think, we must be worse than everyone else. Maybe this is it, This is the way intelligent civilizations develop. They have to go through all these growing pains, and we're immersed in it. But I know if I was ET, I wouldn't want to come here.
Well, I don't know about that. I think that the biodiversity here and the proliferation of life in this eco environment is probably what would be most attractive, I think, to a spacefaring civilization who might happen by. Some people could equate humanity as being more of a virus in the ecosystem that's actually extremely detrimental to biodiversity here. We're losing I think 10 species a day. I forget what the actual figure is, but we're losing species just hand over fist, and we're only discovering about a tenth of the species in a ratio to those species we're losing. So, perhaps it's the ecosystem, it's the environment, it's the wonderful, just incredible amount of life that's on this planet that would be the attraction. And perhaps we're in the way.
Maybe they want to get rid of us and worry about the rest of the species here.
That's a distinct possibility. I wouldn't factor that one out. No way.
But, of course, when we look at other possibilities for UFOs, if it's not ET, or if ET is only part of the picture, well, what about crypto-terrestrials? The late Mac Tonnies had the book called The Crypto-Terrestrials. Now, as a practical matter, nothing that Mac said in that book was unique. Anyone who has studied the wide spectrum of the UFO mystery would find a lot of concurrence there. But for those who are wondering why we focus on things other than ET, that might be the book to get. It's a short book, it's a couple of hours read, and then you'll understand why we have to think it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah, and that's not the only potential explanation. As we will hopefully discuss with Dr. Vallee, we'll also talk about a metaterrestrial scenario, or possibly even touch on the John Keel penned and coined term ultra-terrestrial, which could be something that is akin to Mac Tonnies' crypto-terrestrial, but different. There's a lot of study and research and work that the newcomer to this field needs to undergo before they really make up their mind. Obviously, the ETH, or the extraterrestrial hypothesis, is the one that the media and the culture seems to be programming us with. But I think we owe it to ourselves to look at all potential explanations, especially the ones that involve this closed system spinning in space. And I think that's, in my mind, that's where the real value of Jaques Vallee's work it comes from, is looking at this scenario from outside of the box and looking at the things that don't make sense in relation to an ETH hypothesis. There are so many things about the UFO phenomenon and the appearance of objects in the sky in this wonderful book that's just filled with 500 well-documented cases from before the Industrial Revolution. You know, we're dealing with something that's highly complex here, and I think that we should look at and exhaust all closed system possibilities before we jump off planet.
I think part of the problem also is that we all want the Reader's Digest explanation. And this is part of our cable 24/7 news society, where everybody has to be trained to speak in sound bites. If you can't give an answer in 15 seconds, well, the answer is not worth giving.
Yeah. It's 8 seconds, I think, is the optimum soundbite in Hollywood.
Well, you know, they used to have 30-second commercials. Now you have to do 15-second commercials. So you have the break, for example, on a TV show. And before it was a 1-minute commercial, very leisurely. Then you needed to capture the attention. So it was 30 seconds. Now it's 15 seconds. And soon it's just going to be, 5 seconds per message, and you'll get dizzy watching it. Wait. All the DVRs have a fast-forward button.
I love the old 80s show, Max Headroom, where they had the blipverts, which were, like, I think, 0.2 seconds or something, an entire ad.
Well, everything is coming to pass now. I mean, you have the movie Network from the 1970s and the Peter Finch character. And we know there's a certain TV commentator who has taken that to heart. But we won't mention his name.
Please don't.
We don't want to get into politics. But then, of course, there is exopolitics. There is the politics, I guess, of ET. You first believe in ET, therefore, I guess you have to have an interplanetary embassy or something. So exopolitics must be some way to formulate your embassy.
I'm going to be real interested to hear what Jaques Vallee has to say about the idea of exopolitics. And should be, hopefully we'll have time to ask that question.
He's going to have a somewhat limited amount of time to spend with us, but we're going to cover as much ground as we can on this episode. And we're going to rely not just on our own questions and our own reading of the book, but we have some ideas distilled from what you listeners have asked in our forums. If you go to forum.paracast.com, that's forum.paracast.com, you're able to post your comments, your questions. You can talk about UFOs, ghosts, things that go bump in the night. And some people talk about their favorite movies, their favorite music. Some are musicians, and they tell us about the kinds of guitars they have, the amplifiers they use, things like that. Of course, Chris is a musician, right?
Yep.
Exactly. You can also write to us, news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. We have Dr. Jaques Vallee coming up on the Paracast. He's author of a new book with Chris Aubeck called Wonders in the Sky. My co-host is Chris O'Brien. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in
the Paracast.
Hey neighbors, in this ongoing challenging economy, companies of all sizes must find new ways to cut costs. Every dollar saved helps the bottom line. That's why I recommend a web conferencing solution for your business. GoToMeeting. It helps improve overall business communications and efficiencies, not to mention improving the global economy. The easiest, most affordable for me is GoToMeeting, brought to you by Citrix. Reduce time on the road by presenting, training, and demonstrating online. Improve conference calls by collaborating in real time by sharing your screens. GoToMeeting is the best way to increase your productivity and cut costs. I've used GoToMeeting. It's great. My listeners can try GoToMeeting free for 45 days. That's 1 month of unlimited online meetings free. For this special offer, go to gotomeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, and use the promo code podcast. That's gotomeeting.com, promo code podcast for the special free 45-day trial. Check it out.
Still worrying? From GMO to organic food in jeopardy, divided by economic turmoil, there is still an answer. With just a little knowledge easily acquired, you will literally see food everywhere. Author Linda Runyon has these skills from having lived this way of life and created the tools so you could too. Wild food is economical, nutritious, freely available, abundant, and free for the taking. It is a skill that takes little time to learn, but stays with you for life. And now for a limited time, it's all on sale. It's called the Buy Old website sale. Can you guess what's coming? Absolutely everything's on sale across the board, including our already discounted packages. And you know, the holidays are coming up fast. We don't know if we're going to have another sale this year. This was the only one in 2010 so far. We've been lucky to keep our prices the same since 2008, but who knows what the future will bring. So go to ofthefield.com now or call toll-free 1-888-51-EAT-FREE. That's ofthefield.com or call 1-888-51-EAT-FREE and cross food off your to-do list.
Where have all the military surplus stores gone? Don't worry, you don't need one, because everything you need in military surplus is at MaineMilitary.com. That's M-A-I-N-E Military.com, one of the last surviving true military surplus stores in the country. Go online now to MaineMilitary.com and discover a source for hard-to-find surplus items at true surplus prices. Surplus gun cleaning kits as low as $2.99. Complete chemical suits as low as $11.99. See our huge selection of gas masks, filters, and accessories. Finish and M10 gas masks are 3 for $30, and Swiss filters are 3 for $12. Searching for Strike Anywhere matches? MaineMilitary.com has them, plus a whole new product line of survival and first aid kits and lots more. Get free shipping on orders over $50 only at MaineMilitary.com. That's M-A-I-N-E Military.com, or call 877-608-0179, 877-608-0179. MaineMilitary.com, the main name in military supply.
Most Americans believe famine and hunger will never happen. But what if? Day 1, mayhem breaks out at grocery stores. Day 3, families are on edge. Day 5, the neighbors come knocking. Day 10, small bands of thieves begin stealing at gunpoint. Day 15, desperation, but the government can't help because there's no food left. Introducing the Grab-and-Go Emergency Food Supply from Solutions from Science. 84 delicious, nutritious food servings, including breakfast, lunch, and dinner entrees. Enough to feed 4 adults for a week. Every meal 100% vegetarian for longer shelf life. Claim your Grab-and-Go Emergency Food Supply today at foodshortagesolutions.com. That's foodshortagesolutions.com. Or call 877-327-0365. 877-327-0365. Grab-and-Go Emergency Food Supply. Better a year too soon than one day too late.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
This is Philip Rogno. You're listening to Paracast, one of the most informative shows out there. So listen closely.
You're in the Paracast. I'm Gene Steinberg. The co-host is Chris O'Brien. Returning for an encore appearance, he was here a couple of years ago, we have Dr. Jaques Vallee. He is author with Chris Aubeck of a new book, Wonders in the Sky. Jaques, thanks for joining us.
It's always a pleasure.
Jaques, I wanted to ask you, first of all, I got the impression last time we talked to you, you were pretty much out of the UFO field. Now we have this book in our hands. So what made you consider getting back into it?
I've never really been out of the research. I mean, I'm
This is, a passion for me. I've stopped doing any kind of public speaking or, public publishing, simply because the field has gone off into areas where I don't feel that I can contribute very much. People are mostly wanting to talk about Roswell and abductions and hypnosis and things like that, where I don't believe I can make a real contribution. So I've continued my own research and I've focused on things I could do with my own resources, in other words, with no outside money and no outside organization, simply with trusted friends. I'm very much interested in field research, so I'm following a number of cases in the field, so I still go out and talk to witnesses and try to understand what they've seen, both in the U.S. and in other countries when I have a chance to travel. And then this book came about because of, it's all Chris Obeck's fault. I mean, he contacted me and reignited my passion for the ancient sightings.
I know your book has quite a few of those, but I wanted to go back into something you said there. You don't want to get involved in the stuff like Roswell and the abduction scenario. Do you think these are all red herrings or what?
No, I didn't say that. I just haven't researched both of those fields. Well, Roswell, I really have not researched at all. So I'm aware of what people are publishing, and I'm aware of the controversy around it. I've heard all the stories, same stories everybody else has heard. And I frankly don't know. I tend to approach it skeptically, but I have not reached a firm conclusion about it. On abductions, it's different. I've studied about 70 cases of abductions, some in great detail, many others somewhat superficially. In other words, I've met the witnesses, I've heard their stories, but I have not done any follow-up myself. I've been closely involved at one time with what Dr. John Mack was doing, met with him several times and was compared notes about this research. My main concern with abductions is not so much the phenomenon itself. I mean, it seems to be real enough and certainly real to the people who have had the experience. But I'm really concerned with the way it is being studied, and especially with the hypnosis. I think it's unscientific, unethical, and just not the right way to approach the phenomenon. So it's wasting an opportunity to study the experience when we hypnotize people.
Okay, so it goes to say that you're not supportive of something like hypnotic regression to recover supposedly lost memories.
In most cases, no. And there is good psychological and psychiatric evidence to establish that this is not the proper way to approach it. In fact, in many cases, it's a disaster. I've had a number of letters from some of the abductees, including the most well-known abductees, writing to me asking if I knew a real hypnotist or a real psychiatrist to help them, because their experience had been changed by the hypnosis that was done by well-meaning amateurs who really didn't know what they were doing and assumed that hypnosis could always bring back accurate memories, which is obviously not the case.
Well, I guess part of the problem also is laymen may be influencing the subjects to bring back memories that fit in with their expectations, right?
Well, in many cases they do, yes. But in some of the cases I've studied, I've taken them. I've never hypnotized anybody myself, but I've taken them to competent clinical psychologists who are trained in hypnosis, and even in one case were teaching hypnosis to psychologists. And in those cases, the practitioners that I approached were horrified when I told them what was going on in the field, expressed, outrage that people were subjected to this kind of thing. and explained to me why that was not the way to recover memories in that particular kind of situation. If you want a very good description of that, you look at the book by Dr. Lindner, Lindner, called The 50-Minute Hour, in which there is a chapter called The Jet-Propelled Couch. Dr. Lindner, at the end of his career, wrote this book summarizing about 10 of the most interesting cases of his psychiatric practice. And one case was a case in which he was approached by the FBI to treat a scientist who had been working at a secret atomic facility in the Southwest as head of a research project. And you can imagine what they were developing, except that he wasn't working anymore because he was distracted by his very frequent travels in space, psychic travel in space. And Lindner goes into great detail to explain why he considered using hypnosis and decided not to. And I think that is a chapter that everybody interested in UFOs, and especially in abductions, should read very, very carefully.
Okay, so briefly, and we'll move on to other stuff. If we're not doing it the right way with hypnosis and the present techniques, what is the right way to do it?
It's not really for me to say. I think if the subject was taken seriously, I would assemble a group of people skilled in investigation and psychologists and psychiatrists, and try to spend a couple of days looking at the available techniques. Like there are techniques of relaxation that have been used in some cases, including cases in which I participated, that can allow the person to remember more. And there are other ways, but again, I'm not trained in that area, and it's really not for me to say that.
Well, we're just trying to get the overview. Okay, let's go back, some of the early years of your research to bring it up to the present, because we have a lot of new listeners because we're on the radio network now, and so many have heard of UFOs in connection with ET. And at some point in time, your viewpoint of what the origin of UFOs diverged from the so-called Donald Keyhoe belief system that flying saucers were here from outer space. Where did it go? Where did it change?
And the Keyhoe belief system is still with us, by the way. So
unfortunately, yes.
We haven't learned very much, but in the 50s, I think it was absolutely the most compelling hypothesis, and I'm not ashamed to say that's the initial hypothesis that I considered when I got into the field, because that's the first thing that comes to mind. Clearly these phenomena are not of human origin. So if they are not of human origin, and it certainly appears to be a technology, the first thing that comes to mind is it must come from outer space.
I'll tell you what, Jacques, let's pursue this in our next segment. We have Jaques Vallee joining us. I'm Gene Steinberg. Chris O'Brien's the co-host. You're in
the Paracast.
Does malware affect Macs? Well, here's the truth. Malware writers are targeting Macs more and more, and you may be surprised to find out just how much malware there is out there. From Trojan horses to scareware, from macroviruses to spyware, Macs are facing new threats regularly. Find out about what types of malware affect Macs and how to protect yourself. Visit Intego.com. That's INTEGO.com, Intego.com.
Hi, this is Tamar from Namecheap. We're a domain name and web hosting company, and we really care about our customers. With domain name purchases, Namecheap offers free SSL and free WhoisGuard for a year to protect your identity from spammers. Most importantly, we care about you. If you'd like to learn more, please visit us at radio.namecheap.com, radio.namecheap.com for web hosting and domain name specials. You can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/Namecheap or become a fan of ours on Facebook at facebook.com/Namecheap. See you online.
I'm concerned about food for my family in the event of an emergency, and I know you are too. Are you ready? Don't wait for an emergency to happen. Put a plan together now with quality dehydrated food from Ready Reserve Foods. For nearly 40 years, Ready Reserve Foods has been in continuous operation, canning the finest in dehydrated foods. Other companies just broker canned foods. Ready Reserve is the manufacturer, controlling quality from start to finish with double enameled cans and nitrogen packing for maximum shelf life. Ready Reserve offers a balanced selection of fruits, vegetables, dairy products, proteins, and grains. Choose from a variety of pre-selected units or order by individual can to customize your own plan. When you purchase from Ready Reserve Foods, you are buying factory direct at wholesale prices. Call today for a free catalog, 1-800-453-2202, or visit ReadyReserveFoods.com. Call 1-800-453-2202. Ready Reserve Foods, factory direct, wholesale pricing.
Becoming a modern smoker is now easier and more cost-effective, thanks to LeSig. Traditional smokers the world over love LeSig. E-cigarettes with a look, feel, and taste of real cigarettes, but without the nasty smoke, ashes, or stains. LeSig is powered by revolutionary microelectronic technology. A small rechargeable battery and unique replaceable cartridge provide all the satisfaction and benefits of smoking without the smoke and all the hazards. See the large variety of LeSig e-cigarette supplies and accessories at LeSig.com. That's LECIG.com. LeSig is competitively priced, comes with the best customer service, a 30-day warranty, and satisfaction guaranteed. What a great gift idea. For a 10% discount, mention GCN when you call 870-518-4307. That's 870-518-4307. Ask for fast, free same-day shipping. Order online at LeSig.com and use promo code GCN at checkout. That's LECIG.com. LeSig, for today's modern smoker.
It's the winter cold and flu supplement sale at HerbalHealer.com. Take advantage of Herbal Healer Academy's incredible savings on the best cold and flu supplements available. Many of you know elderberry is exceptional against viral infections. Right now, Herbal Healer Academy has Elderberry Power, regularly priced at $16.95, now incredibly low at only $10 for 60 vegetarian caps. For children and seniors, our Herbal Healer Academy Flew Away Elderberry Liquid is only $13 for a 4-ounce bottle. Also on super sale, olive leaf capsules, oregano oil plus capsules, and our incredible Respirate formula, Oregacillin Physician Strength capsules for your lungs. Normally $34.95, now just $25. Hit the winter specials link at HerbalHealer.com for these cold and flu supplement specials and other on-sale products like apple cider vinegar, brain power, and neuro recovery. New customers get a free catalog with your first order. Log on and hit the winter specials now at HerbalHealer.com.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
You're in the Paracast. You never know what's going to happen next.
Dr. Jaques Vallee joining us. He is co-author of a new book with Chris Aubeck called Wonders in the Sky. Chris O'Brien's my co-host. I'm Gene Steinberg. We were talking about the evolution of Dr. Vallee's thinking about UFOs. And early on, you thought it was E.T. What led you to believe that it was a far more complicated enigma?
When I got into the field in the 60s, of course, I read the books by Kehoe. The phenomenon appeared as a technology, and it still does in many cases, but not in all cases. And the first hypothesis that you have to consider is that it does come from outer space. This was certainly the hypothesis put forward by Kehoe in the 50s. Of course, everybody had seen science fiction movies, the B movies and Forbidden Planet and movies like that, where clearly the whole idea of contact with interplanetary aliens was very much in in the American culture and in the world culture. In fact, my first two books were directed at the idea of extraterrestrial life. And by the way, it still has to be one of the hypotheses, because it's a big universe out there. We know now that the conditions for life must exist throughout the universe. That wasn't necessarily true in the 60s. I remember Dr. Hynek was teaching that we should expect to see planets around stars just like we see kittens around a cat. But many astronomers disagreed with that and said the Earth is unique, and human life is unique, human intelligence is unique, and by the way, even if there was life out there, it couldn't travel here because the distances are too great, speed of light, and so on. Today, I think where scientists are a little bit more open-minded, not much, but a little bit more, and we've discovered 500 planets. So now the idea that there is life in outer space is much more prevalent. Also, we understand more about the conditions under which life can exist and prosper. Also, we understand that complex molecules can exist in outer space, including interstellar space, which I would have been, thrown out of the university if I had said that when I was studying astronomy. So we've made a lot of progress. So the idea of extraterrestrial intelligence manifesting here has always to be one of the hypotheses, but there are others. And the problem with the ETH, the ET hypothesis, is that it doesn't explain the data as the database exists today. When I talk to witnesses, in most cases, they don't describe a craft that comes down from the sky and lands and makes a hole in the ground and then takes off again. Most of the time, they describe a light that very often manifests all of a sudden in their vicinity. In some cases, turns into something that looks like a machine or a technology, performs something like stopping a car or, chasing an airplane or, in fact, landing and leaving traces, and then, in many cases, disappears on the spot, even disappears by becoming transparent, for example, or by changing shape and reducing itself to a point and vanishing on the spot. And I realize that there are physical theories, including general relativity, that under some conditions could explain that kind of behavior. But if the technology can do that, it can be from anywhere, anytime. So it could be, for example, from a parallel universe. It could be from some place in time. It could be created by some phenomenon of human consciousness that we just don't know about yet. So reducing it to saying these are aliens from outer space and forcing that as the hypothesis for UFOs is much too narrow. We have to open up the spectrum of possibilities, and then it becomes much more exciting.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point, that the ETH does have, and as we go along in time, it seems to gain legs. However, there's certain elements that you brought out very early on in terms of the data that don't support a nuts and bolts theory. One of the things that's always puzzled me in my own personal investigative work and in reading your work, John Keel, others, is the absurdity factor. There seems to be a nonsensical element that doesn't quite make sense, I think, for a nuts and bolts theory. When did you first start noticing that there were just elements behind many of these cases that absolutely made no sense, and that it almost called into question the very validity of the experience itself?
40 years ago, I published a book called Passport to Magonia, which was, after publishing two books arguing about the reality of UFOs as a technology and probably as a technology from outer space, by then I had a lot more data, And I began asking myself the question, when did all this begin? Which is, in science, when you're confronted with a new phenomenon, one of the things you do is you look for patterns. And especially in my field, which is information science, I don't consider myself a physicist. I was trained in astrophysics, but really most of my career has been in computer science and in information science. And so I tend to look for patterns. And most UFO books still today say the UFO phenomenon started on 24 June 1947 when Kenneth Arnold, pilot in the state of Washington, saw the flying saucers over Mount Rainier and so on. Well, he didn't actually see flying saucers. He never described it that way. He saw crescents, silver crescents that were skipping in the air just like a saucer would skip on water. And then the journalists turned that into flying saucers. So, but we have data before Kenneth Arnold. We have data in the 19th century, lots of data. And then we have, if you read Charles Fort and people like that, you find that there have been sightings in prior centuries. So I had some time on my hand. I was living in France at the time and had access to very, very good libraries and archives, and I started researching older sightings, and I found that the phenomenon extended very, very far in the past, and that the behavior, and you point out the absurdity factor, that absurdity factor was there also in the early cases, and that there was a parallel between the behavior of the phenomenon as it is described today, including the entities associated with it, the so-called aliens, and what was described in older stories as the elves and the demons and the angels and the creatures of light and what they did, and the jinn, of course, in the Middle East and so on. And I became very interested in this, and Passport to Magonia was really based on the idea of a parallel between the behavior of the phenomenon in medieval times and its behavior now. And of course, every culture in every era has interpreted it in its own terms. So we tend to interpret it in space travel terms as aliens from another planet, just like people in the 16th century were interpreting it as creatures from hell or creatures from inside the earth, or elves and fairies and leprechauns and things like that, who are also doing absurd things.
So with the cultural factor here that we're talking about, that it seems to inherit the culture and the expectations of the society where they see these things.
Yes, but when you strip the description of those cultural factors, what you end up with is the same thing we do today. In other words, a light that seems to contain or to be created by a technology that seems to be able to affect the environment with heat and, in some cases, radiation and traces on the ground and an alteration of the sense of reality in the witness that's interpreted as an abduction in many cases, and paralysis, and all those things are present throughout time. And in the book that Chris Obeck and I have just published, in Wonders in the Sky, you find a lot more data now reinforcing that pattern.
Yeah, and I'll absolutely agree with that. And I must.
Okay, well, Chris, we have to do the break now. Then you go on to it. Okay. Dr. Jaques Vallee joins us. He's author with Chris Obeck of Wonders in the Sky. Chris O'Brien's the co-host. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in
the Paracast.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. We the people people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, then carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Ted Anderson, I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
We return with Dr. Jaques Vallee on the Paracast. I'm Gene Steinberg. The co-host is Chris O'Brien. Chris, you have a question to follow up on.
Well, first of all, I have an observation, and I must say, reading through Wonders in the Sky, I'm absolutely amazed at the amount of real good, solid research and data mining that Chris and yourself have done. This is a very impressive reference book. It's jaw-dropping in its scope. There's 500 cases that I can't recommend this book enough to our listeners. I almost get the sense, Dr. Vallee, that this is almost Passport to Magonia Part 2, but done in such a way, the way that you've rated each of these reports and your methodology of compiling these reports, it's very impressive. And I kind of get the sense that this is almost a Passport to Magonia Part 2. Was that kind of the way you were approaching this?
Yes, very much so. And a lot of the credit, most of the credit, has to go to Chris Orbeck. And in a way, this is also a transition of generations, because Chris is much younger than I am. He will write many other books. I won't. And I want to go back to my quiet research. Chris is loves language. He's a philologist. He's a young Englishman who lives in Madrid. He's a lover of history, and he contacted me about 6 years ago. We talked about Passport to Magonia, and he said that essentially he was going over that same territory, but using the internet. And I think this book is only possible, number one, because of the scholarship that Chris is bringing to the subject, and the internet. In the internet in two ways, because what I could not do when I wrote Passport to Magonia, I knew I was just scratching the surface. And I only had access to, fairly limited resources, good libraries, but I couldn't go, take 2 years off and travel around the world and visit every museum or every library looking for old records. Now you can do that from your living room using the web, because 50,000 newspapers have put their collections online. Many museums have done the same thing, and there are more and more every day. So if you have the right search engines, you can really do a lot of data mining on the web today. The second aspect of the internet is that Chris was able to create a project, a collaboration project called the Magonia Exchange, with about 10 active people and many others who collaborate from time to time, but 10 active people from Russia and Germany and Latin America and, of course, the U.S., exchanging data and pooling their resources and tracking down references and critiquing those cases. So when he contacted me, we merged our databases. Since Magonia, I had continued to accumulate cases that people sent me or that I found. And then we started looking at the cases one by one and eliminating all those that could be meteors and comets and so on. There are now excellent historical books about the history of comets. There's a big book called Cometography that has an analysis of comets down through history. I mean, we used references like that and references on the web. to track down as many of those cases as possible. And for every case we kept, we eliminated 4 or 5 or 10. And my recommendation to Chris was that we shouldn't stop until we had 500 cases, and before the Industrial Revolution. We didn't quite make it. We stopped in 1879. But 1879 is still pretty good because there was no airplane in the sky. There were a few balloons, but people knew where they were. I mean, the people flying balloons were pretty well known. There was no dirigible. There was no CIA. There were no secret prototypes. There was no U-2. There was no Area 51. I mean, if something was in the sky, it was described pretty well. I mean, you could analyze it in terms of natural phenomena. And one of the criticisms that I expect that our book will receive, especially from ufologists, is, well, it's old folklore. I was attacked, pretty viciously with Passport to Magonia by ufologists who said, well, Vallee has gone off the deep end with this thing because all this is vague folklore. It is not vague folklore. The consuls in Rome, in the Roman Empire, had made a rule that they had to have a report every year on any unusual thing in the sky. And this was, of course, for astrological reasons, that anything unusual in the sky might announce an important historical event, famine and war, revolution, the death of an emperor, or things like that. And so those records, some of them were lost, but many of them were saved by historians who wrote their own books based on those records, and those were picked up again in the Middle Ages and have traveled down to us. It's a little bit as if Barack Obama called the Secretary of the Air Force and said, I demand to have a quarterly report on UFOs seen over the U.S., on my desk.
Yeah, we can only be so lucky.
Yes. And,
Jacques, one thing that I noticed in here, which I really found gratifying, I've heard so many skeptics and naysayers say, well, how come astronomers never see these objects? And I am absolutely bedazzled by the amount of credible astronomy astronomer reports in this book, especially obviously from the 15th century on. It's just, page after page after page of objects that are seen by people who have state of the art training for the time period. That's something that I think should be pointed out. One of the things that
they had observing instruments that are for what they were doing equal to what we have today. I mean, the Paris Observatory had first class telescopes. And when you have, Le Verrier, when you have Lagrange, when you have Cassini, when you have the Secretary of the Royal Society, all these people who are, luminaries of science, describing objects in the sky and saying that they could not explain them, and we cannot explain them. That's absolutely fascinating, and that's one of the things that kept us going. We worked very hard on this for 6 years. Nobody got paid. There was no budget. There was nobody, no sponsor. We just did it, and it was absolutely fascinating to discover. It was really a journey of discovery. To track down the references for all these cases, some of which have been sketched out in some UFO books, because other people have gone through some of that before us. Of course, we don't pretend to have invented all this, but in many cases they could not get to the original reference, and so we tracked it down in every case. And you have Cassini observing something at Paris Observatory, and he did not publish it because he had seen it only once, but a few years later he saw it again in very similar circumstances, and then he published the 2 observations. And here you see how science developed in a very open, intellectually rich context, and you wonder when did science become this sort of constipated, close-minded thing that we have today in academic science when you're talking about new phenomena?
Well, maybe nowadays, of course, it's also the political influences because they have to get grants and they have to deal with politicians and things get kind of messy. We'll get into that more in a moment. Jaques Vallee joining us. Chris O'Brien's the co-host. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in
the Paracast.
Hi, this is Tamar from Namecheap. We're a domain name and web hosting company, and we really care about our customers. With domain name purchases, Namecheap offers free SSL and free WhoisGuard for a year to protect your identity from spammers. Most importantly, we care about you. If you'd like to learn more, please visit us at radio.namecheap.com, radio.namecheap.com for web hosting and domain name specials. You can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/Namecheap or become a fan of ours on Facebook at facebook.com/Namecheap. See you online.
Hey neighbors, Nuance offers Dragon speech recognition for a variety of platforms. Dragon Dictate for Mac, Dragon Naturally Speaking 11 for Windows, and Dragon mobile apps for BlackBerry, iPhone, and iPad. No matter how you compute, Dragon instantly converts what you say into text, helping you be more productive just by talking. Find out more at getdragon.com. That's getdragon.com. getdragon.com.
Gold. It's like nothing else on Earth. From the Romans through the Renaissance, from the Industrial Age to the Space Age, gold has weathered the test of time. For 6,000 years, gold has remained the ultimate store of wealth. According to the World Gold Council and the U.S. Mint, demand is at an all-time high. The stage is being set for the reemergence of gold as the common-sense alternative to a fiat paper currency that gets weaker every day. Midas Resources is proud to offer the hard-hitting report that arms you with the truth you need to protect you and your family from the Fed's plans for your hard-earned money. Don't gamble with your future. Call Midas Resources today and ask for your free copy of As Good as Gold. Call 1-800-686-2237 for the report the Fed hopes you'll never see. As Good as Gold can be yours by calling 800-686-2237. If you have ever thought about owning gold, you must read this report. Call Midas today at 800-686-2237.
Looking for the ultimate superfood? One that will give you lasting energy, improve your sense of well-being, and help you build lean muscle? One World Whey is the first ever unheated whey protein powder on the market. Virtually all other whey protein powders on the market are heated. This damages 15% or more of the proteins, making them unusable to the body. Fresh raw whey has been used for hundreds of years to alleviate many health problems. The life-giving properties in raw whey are now available in One World Whey. Whether you want to build immunity, strength, endurance, muscle, slow down aging, or just feel a lot better, One World Whey may be the perfect food for you. One World Whey is also an ideal emergency preparedness food. Simply mix with water and you'll have a delicious, life-giving protein food in vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry. For your free report on the benefits of unheated whey protein powder, call 888-988-3325 or visit oneworldwhey.com. That's 888-988-3325 or visit oneworldwhey.com.
Still worrying? From GMO to organic food in jeopardy, divided by economic turmoil, there is still an answer. With just a little knowledge easily acquired, you will literally see food everywhere. Author Linda Runyon has these skills from having lived this way of life and created the tools so you could too. Wild food is economical, nutritious, freely available, abundant, and free for the taking. It is a skill that takes little time to learn, but stays with you for life. And now, for a limited time, it's all on sale. It's called the Buy Old website sale. Can you guess what's coming? Absolutely everything's on sale across the board, including our already discounted packages. And you know, the holidays are coming up fast. We don't know if we're going to have another sale this year. This was the only one in 2010 so far. We've been lucky to keep our prices the same since 2008, but who knows what the future will bring. So go to ofthefield.com now or call toll-free 1-888-51-EAT-FREE. That's ofthefield.com or call 1-888-51-EAT-FREE and cross food off your to-do list.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned in to the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
We have Dr. Jaques Vallee. He's written with Chris Aubeck a new book called Wonders in the Sky, tracing UFOs, strange things in the sky, going back for hundreds and hundreds of years. So one of the questions we were raising before we continued here, and that is, Jaques, do you think it's the political posture that causes science to be, as they say, constipated nowadays?
There are open-minded scientists, and especially here in Silicon Valley where I work. One of my colleagues commented one day about my research by saying, when we stop asking these questions, we might as well, close down Silicon Valley or sell it to the Japanese, because Silicon Valley is based on people thinking out of the box and asking questions like the questions we're asking now. I mean, we have a phenomenon that is unusual, and that's how science gets breakthroughs. But most of science today is, of course, based on big institutions that are funded by government grants in many cases, and most of it is really incremental. It's not looking for breakthroughs. In fact, it frowns on breakthroughs. It's really looking for the next iteration or an improvement, and we make improvements all the time. I mean, just look at your iPhone or your computer. But those are incremental improvements that come out of labs where people have been working diligently to get to the next decimal place or get to the next improvement. The UFO phenomenon is a surprise. It comes from in ways we don't expect. It does not come to us through scientific channels in most cases, although if we had access to some of the military records...
Boy, wouldn't that be nice?
...that are instrumented, and we know from reports from pilots and so on that in many cases they have seen things, but they have also recorded things, and the records have been taken away. If we had access, if science had access to those records, it would be a whole new ballgame. But, and we can discuss why science does not have access to those records. But
well, one of the things, though, that you do raise there is, okay, the military maybe has information, but do you think any government on Earth knows what's really going on? Do they even have a clue?
I would only guess. My guess would be no, that they have data, but they don't have the solution. Because I think that's something that many people don't understand. The fact that you have a lot of data about a phenomenon doesn't mean you understand it. I mean, we have a lot of data about cancer, and we've certainly worked on the problem of cancer for the last 50 years with all the techniques and instruments of modern science, and we still have only fragmentary understanding of the process, and we certainly don't have a global solution to the problem. So that's the way science should work, is that you make the data available on a competitive basis to different teams of scientists with different ideas, different hypotheses, different techniques, and then they communicate among themselves. But that's not the way the military works. I mean, the military has very specific missions, and when something happens outside of those missions, the tendency is to, examine the data to see if it's a new threat, and if it's not an obvious new threat, then it goes into a drawer, and in many cases it's forgotten.
Well, you think maybe that's part of the problem, too, that maybe there is that Warehouse 13 where the military has all sorts of information and evidence, but they aren't looking at it because it's not an immediate threat, doesn't fit into their framework?
Well, I don't know the right answer to that, but in the cases where I do have first-hand experience, the data may not even be there anymore, because I know of some archives, including some military archives, that have been dispersed or shredded, simply to make, for new records. And we certainly have testimony from people who were, clerical assistants in some of these archives, and were told to digitize records, for example, to make room and eliminate the paper records, and in many cases the paper record was shredded and the digital record was never done. There are also cases where people in charge of the archive maybe were very interested in the cases, but their bosses were not, and they were told to destroy the data, again, just to make room, and where they just took the cases away. I think that's only true of some of the Blue Book projects. There was a funny incident in the days of the Condon study when Professor Condon, I think somebody on the Hill, some senator or some congressman, wanted to have information about a certain sighting that had happened in his district, and he asked the Air Force, and the Air Force asked Dr. Condon because they thought he had the record and he didn't, and the Air Force couldn't produce a record because it had disappeared from their files. And in many cases, somebody just took it to show it to his kids, or just to save it from being destroyed by some bureaucrat.
So when we send out all these Freedom of Information requests, maybe there's just nothing to give us.
Well, in many cases, the record isn't there, and that's certainly true in France, and it's certainly true in the Blue Book files. There are cases that for which we have a reference in the index, and I had compiled the first complete index of the Air Force files when I was working with Dr. Hynek in the mid-'60s at Northwestern in Chicago, and some of those cases only exist in the index anymore, unless somebody saved it, and I've saved a lot of them, copies, I should say. I didn't have the originals. But, that's the way bureaucracy works. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, these are things that don't, to the bureaucracy, don't seem to have any real importance, especially after you have the Academy of Sciences coming up with a report that says there is nothing to it and it's not a threat and people shouldn't be spending time or money studying it.
Yeah, so let's create MUFON.
So it's not really the fault of the military all the time. I mean, the scientific community has not really been diligent in encouraging anybody to save the data.
So maybe you're suggesting here that a lot of the key evidence, the most important evidence that maybe we could acquire to learn something more, it doesn't exist because it's been thrown away.
Historical evidence, we have more data, more accurate data from the Roman Empire. if you read our book, than many of the recent data. The old data. You have to remember that this was in cultures where most people were illiterate. So the people who wrote down the records and took the time to do it. And again, paper was expensive, and some of those cases were not written on paper. They were written on papyrus or carved in stone. And so somebody took a lot of trouble to preserve those cases.
So if you spend all that time, it's not disposable. It becomes more compelling to save it. We have Dr. Jaques Vallee. Chris O'Brien's the co-host. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in
the Paracast.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You can download a version that is mostly full-featured. Try it out, and if you like it, it's just $34.95 for Graphic Converter from lemkesoft.com. That's lemkesoft.com. lemkesoft.com for my favorite Graphic Converter.
We all know that Berkey water purification systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 5 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey water filtration systems. The Berkey Light systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light system today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $209, and the Berkey Guy will include 3 sport Berkey water bottles and ship everything to you free of charge. That's right, 3 sport Berkey water bottles and free shipping. An $87 value, yours free. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at GoBerkey.com. That's GoBerkey.com today.
As gardeners, we can all relate.
What do you do with all of the excess food that you grow?
Freezing or canning may have been the process you've used, but the good folks at Excalibur Dehydrator have a healthy alternative to preserve the fruits of your labor. The Excalibur Dehydrator will help you preserve your fruits and vegetables quickly and easily, so you don't have to worry about premature spoiling. You can also use your Excalibur Dehydrator year-round to make delicious jerky. And the best part? The foods you dehydrate are free from excess additives, salt, and preservatives, and that's something we can all do without. To learn more and to order your very own Excalibur Dehydrator, visit drying123.com and see how the Excalibur Dehydrator can help you preserve your favorite foods.
Mention coupon code GCN and receive a free book on how to preserve your foods.
Again, that's drying123.com, drying123.com, or call 1-800-875-4254. That's 1-800-875-4254 today.
Hi, I'm here talking with Don Wiskin of HeartDrop.com. I understand that you changed the name of your product, Don.
Yes, we did. It's now Extendivite, meaning to extend your life.
Wow, extend your life. Everybody wants to extend their life. How is it made, Don?
Well, Extendivite is made from herbs gathered from many different parts of the world. We chose 7 of the heart and health-related herbs known to improve your health.
Your heart drops have always kept me from feeling sick or run down, Don. Will Extendivite continue to do the same thing for me?
Yes, it will. All we changed was the name. I'm here because at 42 I had a heart attack and the garlic cayenne drops gave me back my life.
We have been talking with Don Wiskin about his exciting new product called Extendivite. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit his website at heartdrop.com. That's HeartDrop.com.
On air, online, and on demand. We are the GCN Radio Network.
You're in the Paracast. You never know what's going to happen next.
We have Dr. Jaques Vallee. He and Chris Aubeck have a new book out called Wonders in the Sky. You can get a copy from your favorite bookseller or Amazon, or click on the link over at theparacast.com. And you were talking about the record keeping, and I guess the long and short of it is, Jaques, that if you spend all that time basically putting the words to paper, you're more inclined to want to preserve it. But in a disposable society, sometimes we dispose of these things too readily?
Well, if you write something on a CD today, it probably will be unreadable in 5 years. If you put it on paper, paper can be attacked by oxygen and fire and rats and insects, and water, of course. So the probability it's going to survive is pretty low, including in government archives. And the ancient records that have come down to us were things that people really wanted to preserve, and because they felt it was important. So in that sense, we think, Chris and I think of our book as just the beginning. We'd like to alert the community of scholars, not so much the astronomers or the military or any of that, but the people working in museums, the librarians, the archivists, the people who study old manuscripts or correspondence of, there must be tons of things in the attic of castles in France and Italy and England and so on, where people have related things like that, and we found some of that, and we published it whenever we found it. I mean, those are the best records. When somebody writes, my dear uncle, you will not believe what we saw in the garden yesterday, and it's, 1671 or something like that. The cases in China and Japan are especially precious, and we hope to inspire scholars from those cultures to go back, and we only have fragmentary information about what they have in their museums, and there must be a lot more. I mean, the Chinese culture is so rich and so ancient that there must be a lot more cases. We have quite a few cases from China, and they are written in a beautiful poetic descriptions, and they are extraordinary. And again, they match the descriptions of the UFO phenomenon today. So somebody needs to explain that at some point. In the book, we don't explain anything. We don't have a hypothesis that we're pushing. We're not trying to tell you what to think. I mean, it's just too early. We just have 500 cases before the modern age, before there was anything human flying in the sky, that are begging for explanation. The book is in 3 parts. The first part is a collection of cases that we call the chronology, placing every period in its own historical context in terms of science, communication, and so on. The second part contains examples of the cases we rejected. And of course, we couldn't put all of them because it would be an encyclopedia, but giving examples of what we rejected and why. And then the third section is really the disclosure, very complete disclosure on the sources and methods we used in the selection, so that people can see what we did and they can agree or disagree with the selection criteria. And then in the conclusion, we've done a number of statistical studies relating the time of day, the frequency during the year, the duration of cases, and so on. And we did not include any legends. People say, the Hopi Indians have a legend about a beautiful maiden coming from the sky in a flying basket, and so on. Well, that's great, but and it's certainly very interesting for folklore study, for anthropologists, and so on. But we don't have a date and a place and the name of the witness. What we wanted were cases that we could place at least, fairly precisely within a year, and then in the later centuries, very precisely. So we wanted a date and a place. And in many cases, we had the date, the place, the name of the witness, and the time of day. So you can begin to do some good statistics, and then people are free to test their own hypotheses against the database.
One of the things, Dr. Vallee, that always struck me about your work and your out-of-the-box thinking was your idea of I think you tended to sort of drift over into the thinking that this could possibly be manifesting in its totality as some sort of a control system, that you used the description of a thermostat, and that always struck me as being it had a real ring to it. And when people ask me what's a good book to read about ufology that doesn't talk about Roswell, of course, I always mention your book Dimensions, where you do go into quite a bit of detail with that thinking. I seem to recall back in the late 70s, I think you did a magazine interview with Jerry Clark in Fate, and you were quoted as saying that assuming that there is a feedback mechanism involved in the operations of the control system, if you can change the information that's carried back to the system, you might be able to infiltrate it through its own feedback. Could you possibly elaborate quickly on that? I was very struck by that, and it stuck with me for a long time, and I did look up the actual quote.
Well, it's, again, I'm an information scientist, so I don't look at things the same way that, my colleagues in physics, like Professor Michio Kaku, for example, is now, and I'm delighted to see that somebody of his stature is now looking at the theory of different dimensions and opening up the hypotheses for the phenomenon. When I look at the behavior of it, and you mentioned the absurdity. Well, absurdity has its own structure. Absurdity doesn't mean that something doesn't have any structure, especially when you look now at the full historical tapestry that we have, especially with this book now. It appears that the phenomenon is reacting to us or to our own interpretation of it in a very, very interesting way. And of course, it doesn't mean that there is somebody controlling it, turning the knobs in some cave in the Himalayas or in some mountain of the moon to control us. That's not what I mean by control system. I mean a system that controls information in a way that keeps a higher level standard constant, or that drives it to a particular state of the system. Think of ecology, for example. If the Pacific Ocean heats up, then certain phenomena happen that again control the overall temperature, and you have wind and storms and so on in a particular way. That's a feedback system, and it's a control system, but it's a natural control system. Now we have human control systems. The culture that we evolve collectively is a sort of control system that expressed through language and through images and through technology and through all of that. So, and we're not necessarily conscious of it. The UFO phenomenon seems to have a technology associated with it and a form of consciousness associated with it. And that form of consciousness is not reacting to things in a linear way, but it seems to have its own internal structure. And people like Jung, for example, the psychiatrist, came up with the idea of archetypes and the idea of a collective unconscious, including with respect to sightings of UFOs, including with respect to ancient UFOs, ancient descriptions of the phenomenon, as expressions of the collective unconscious.
I'll tell you what, Jacques, we have to break here. We have Dr. Jaques Vallee. The co-host is Chris O'Brien. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in
the Paracast.
Ray Perkins, a reclusive veteran burned out from the Gulf War, lives tortured by relentless, perplexing nightmares. Nightmares of a horrific battle in deep space and of a mysterious woman suffering in agony for her devastated world. A woman not yet born, calling across centuries to him. Then, a coincidence leads him to his destiny, his chance to alter the universe. Attack of the Rockoids. The former fiction editor for Star Wars and Indiana Jones, Robert Simpson, writes, "The soul of the novel Attack of the Rockoids lies in its heart and passion for building a convincing tale of a love that spans the galaxy. A thrilling story. Attack of the Rockoids is available now. Read a sample chapter and get a special discount off of the cover price at our website, rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com. Attack of the Rockoids, a novel in the grand science fiction tradition."
I'm concerned about food for my family in the event of an emergency, and I know you are too. Are you ready? Don't wait for an emergency to happen. Put a plan together now with quality dehydrated food from Ready Reserve Foods. For nearly 40 years, Ready Reserve Foods has been in continuous operation, canning the finest in dehydrated foods. Other companies just broker canned foods. Ready Reserve is the manufacturer, controlling quality from start to finish with double enameled cans and nitrogen packing for maximum shelf life. Ready Reserve offers a balanced selection of fruits, vegetables, dairy products, proteins, and grains. Choose from a variety of pre-selected units or order by individual can to customize your own plan. When you purchase from Ready Reserve Foods, you are buying factory direct at wholesale prices. Call today for a free catalog, 1-800-453-2202, or visit ReadyReserveFoods.com. Call 1-800-453-2202. Ready Reserve Foods. Factory direct wholesale pricing.
If you're not satisfied with how your skin is aging and want a healthy, youthful glow with immediate results, get a facelift from the inside out with Vizuri. Like a mini facelift, only without needles or surgery, Vizuri is a revolutionary youth rejuvenation skincare system that's proven to work or your money back. Vizuri is all natural and chemical and preservative-free. It helps reverse damage to complexions as a result of aging, stress, lifestyle, and pollution. Vizuri reduces skin pore size, firms, lifts, and tightens, leaving you with soft, silky, shiny skin and looking years younger. You may have seen Vizuri reviewed by CBS TV News. Now see how Vizuri is helping men and women get a fountain of youth facelift at avatarfacial.com and click on CBS TV News to see video of the amazing Vizuri skincare system. Call 888-203-5278. That's 888-203-5278, or go to avatarfacial.com, spelled AVATAR facial.com, and click on CBS TV News. Vizuri, the fountain of youth facelift.
Okay, I want to address the skeptics listening to talk radio. You hear multiple commercials on products that make you feel better and help you lose weight, but you don't believe it. Companies come and go. Well, people, I understand. You really are desiring a product that works, but you're tired of getting burned with substandard quality, gimmicks, and 3 to 6 month get-involved contracts. Life Change Tea is different. I speak for Life Change Tea because I lost 25 pounds, lowered my blood pressure, and blood sugar levels. I sleep well at night, knowing Life Change Tea customers are receiving a real product that works, customer service, and customer satisfaction. So here's my spiel. Test us, try us, and receive results. And if you don't try us, that's okay. And if you do, you'll be a happy tea customer getting healthy. So order now. Call us at 928-308-0408. That's 928-308-0408. Or you can log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. In my opinion, you won't be sorry.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
This is the Paracast. You never know what's going to happen next.
We have Dr. Jaques Vallee. He is co-author with Chris Aubeck of Wonders in the Sky, collecting strange reports of strange objects in the sky going back to antiquity. The co-host is Chris O'Brien. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in the Paracast. Okay, let us continue what we were talking about here, trying to maybe define what the phenomenon is. But does any of that say it can't be E.T.?
No, there is no way that we can put limits on what could be out there, on the forms of consciousness, the forms of life that could be out in space. But remember, our concept of space and time is extraordinarily primitive. And again, the idea of other dimensions beyond the 3 dimensions of space and the 1 dimension of time, that idea, when I wrote Passport to Magonia and when I wrote Dimensions, was a marginal idea in physics that came from people doing cosmology and people doing particle physics. And if you remember, in quantum mechanics, you need an infinity of dimensions. So that idea was still there, was already there, but it was there as a mathematical speculation. Nobody was really seriously looking at other dimensions as a physical reality, but now they do. I mean, now this is mainstream physics. Again, Dr. Michio Kaku is expressing that much better than I do in terms of the possibility of other universes parallel to ours. Dr. Hynek used to joke about maybe there's a universe 5 minutes ahead of us. Maybe we're dancing with entities that come from a universe that's just very close to us and that we don't see. And the big challenge is how would we communicate with it? And if we can communicate, can we send matter into that other universe or just information? And what are the consequences of that? I mean, this is mainstream physics. Not because of UFOs, but because of problems in cosmology and problems in elementary particle physics. The placing boundaries around the phenomenon is very difficult, and you have to realize the book, I think one of the interesting aspects of Wonders in the Sky, certainly to me, was the dynamics between Chris Obeck and me. Chris is very much a scholar. He's extremely precise, and he wanted to really limit what we included in the book to aerial phenomena. I was much more willing to be a little bit loose with the definitions and include entities. And Chris, we had some real fights about this, and I think it's healthy in a book to have authors who have different approaches to it. And I do hope you will interview Chris and let him, talk about his side of the story.
That's in the works, by the way, Jacques.
Oh, excellent. And I won. He let me get away with a couple of cases where there was just an entity, because it was so illustrative of the phenomenon as a whole. But in most cases, we only included entities that were associated with a light or an aerial phenomenon, a globe of light, or things of that type. We had a big fight about Joan of Arc. If you remember, Joan of Arc had an immense impact on history, on European history. She was this young lady who was inspired to take over the French armies, and she was inspired by entities of light, by beings of light, that she mostly heard, but it seems that she also saw them. And they were off to the side, and they were talking to her. There is a great painting in New York, in one of the museums in New York, of these entities of light and Joan listening to them. And Chris was saying, well, this is not an aerial phenomenon according to our definitions. And of course, I accused him of wanting to cover up the case because he's an Englishman. But so we had a good laugh about that, and I lost that one, so we don't talk about Joan of Arc in the book. There are other cases where I won, and he let me get away with it. But he's right in saying if we start including entities by themselves, including beings of light and so on, then it's a 5,000-page book, not a 500-page book. So we limited it to cases where there was an actual aerial phenomenon. But it's very difficult to make these definitions. Where do you draw the line?
Exactly. Well, one of the things that I've always felt, fairly, I just have always gotten a sense of tricksterism being involved in many of the cases down through history. And you mentioned Jung's idea of the collective unconscious. Of course, the trickster is one of the more primordial archetypal symbols that we all share around the world subculturally. How about the trickster? I mean, I've never seen you actually mention the trickster as a potential player in some, if not most, of these cases. What do you think of that, of a tricksterish force that might be involved here?
Well, the trickster, and of course it belongs more to anthropology than it does to, and I try to stay pretty close to what witnesses describe, but the trickster comes in. Of course, there is a trickster in every culture. There is coyote in the Indian cultures. There is Legba, of course, in the voodoo.
There's hundreds of them.
The African tradition and so on. And what's very interesting about Legba or Coyote is that he's absurd. And he uses absurdity, and he also has an extraordinary sense of humor, and he belongs to the boundary. I mean, Legba is a deity of the crossroad and of the boundary and of the transition between day and night. And that idea of the threshold where perceptions can be fooled. Human perception is very much in question. You don't see very clearly, and your mind is somewhat troubled, and then things can happen that seem absurd, and then later on you realize, and of course the devil. I mean, the devil in the medieval tradition is very frightening, but he's also funny, and he's also absurd. And he's absurd in ways that can teach us something, as well as, of course, have a very evil result. And the complexity of the phenomenon is similar to the complexity of UFOs. And that's one more reason why it's... and you find that in some of the descriptions, for example, the ancient Chinese descriptions that we have in the book of witnesses who say, I saw this and I'm relating it as I saw it, but I hope that somebody can give me an explanation because I was left completely befuddled by what I had seen. And including some of the physical traces that are left that just don't seem to fit anywhere. And it's not accounted for just by the witnesses being distracted by the phenomenon or disoriented by the phenomenon. It goes deeper than that. It's as if there was something that could manipulate matter at a very deep level.
Jaques, I know you have to leave us in a few moments, so let me ask you a quick final question here. Having gone this far, are you going to be making any public appearances in connection with this book other than doing, of course, the radio circuit?
No, I'm pretty busy with my professional work, and my work is with high technology, and it keeps me very busy. I think the internet is probably the best way of alerting people to the research, and the research, of course, is going to continue. Both Chris and I think that this is just the beginning. If people get in contact with Chris, they can join the research. It's called the Magonia Exchange, and Chris's email address is in the book, and my mail address if people want to send me some information.
Fast question here: is there a website we can check out?
I think that you should get that from Chris. I maintain my own website, but it's mostly about my work in technology.
We'll ask Chris when we have him on the show. The book is called Wonders in the Sky from Jaques Vallee and Chris Aubeck. Jaques Vallee, thanks for joining us on the Paracast.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Hi, Ted Anderson announcing a great way to listen to radio on the telephone. By calling 760-569-7700, you'll be hearing GCNlive.com programs in seconds. Come to GCNlive.com, find your favorite host's dedicated phone number, and hear them 24/7. You heard me right. Every show has a dedicated phone number. Stop by GCNlive.com and bookmark their number today. And again, that's 760-569-7700. Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
This is the post-game show. You're in the Paracast. I'm Gene Steinberg with Chris O'Brien. We've just had an all-too-brief session with Dr. Jaques Vallee where we had about 5 pages of questions. A lot of research. I know I had some ideas there, and Chris spent all this time putting them together, but Jaques could only give us an hour of his time. I hope he'll be back in the future. But let's look at the stuff that maybe we can recover here and bring some of the reactions. What do you think, Chris?
We do have quite a number of questions from the Paracast Forum participants. Very good, well thought out questions. Unfortunately, because he really is focused on his latest book, Wonders in the Sky, with Chris Aubeck, the majority of the conversation obviously was about this just absolutely incredible piece of work. I mean, this is one of the most important reference books ever, I think, ever published in ufology. But that being the case, we didn't have a chance to ask a bunch of questions that we had about his work, some of the projects that he's been involved with. I wanted to talk briefly about the Sherman Ranch case, the Skinwalker Ranch case up in Utah, which I don't know if he would have even if he would have appreciated that. But
why would he have not appreciated it? Please tell us.
Well, like most people that have been associated with that particular effort that was spearheaded by the National Institute of Discovery Sciences, he probably has a non-disclosure gag order on him. But because I've done quite a bit of research and investigation in the surrounding areas that don't involve directly the Sherman Ranch, I was going to go into some of those questions. And plus, I wanted to bring up his recent trip with Frank Salisbury, who we just had on the show. And of course, Dr. Salisbury mentioned that he and Vallee had done some interviewing up there. And
you know what? It'd be interesting, too. If we get Jaques back on the show, let's have him and Dr. Salisbury together.
That would be good. Wow, that's a good idea.
Stunt casting, we call it in show business.
Stunt casting? Wow, that was
they have narrow casting. They have, we have broadcasting. Now we have stunt casting.
Yeah.
It's part of it also. It's like the movie The Expendables, where they collected all the action stars of the last 30 years, and they put them in one film. They had Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Jet Li.
Well, I'd hate to be
Sylvester Stallone, who wrote and directed it.
Wow. And then that's a new movie?
It's called The Expendables. Yeah, it was actually a decent level hit.
Wow.
It came out this past
with a cast
summer.
Like that, how could it go wrong?
I don't know. The last few movies Sylvester Stallone has done.
Yeah.
Haven't done so well.
Let's see. Who would we get? We get Jerry Clark. We could get Larry Bryant, Frank Salisbury. And, some sparks would fly, and there'd be a lot of reminiscing going on with a group like that, with a stunt broadcast like that. That would be fun.
Well, of course, when we had the tragic death of John Keel and Richard Hall, we had our own kind of stunt casting where we had several people who came on board on the Paracast, and we had people who don't go on these shows very often. I mean, Jaques Vallee doesn't go on radio very often. I mean, he's doing it now because of the book, but he doesn't normally do that. We had Jerome Clark. We had an old friend of mine, Kurt Southerly. We had Brad Steiger. We had a whole group of people together who never appear together except on the Paracast.
Right. Yeah, the Keel one turned out to be almost like a post-mortem roast, actually. It's kind of sick sounding, but...
Well, you know what? Part of the thing is that he was such an idea man, John Keel, but when it came to the actual research, he was on the opposite, a polar opposite of Jaques Vallee. We see Jaques Vallee and Chris Aubeck spending so much time trying to get the fine details correct. It's kind of like we talk about technology, and we have Apple Incorporated, where they try to get all the stuff well integrated, get all the facts, all the details as much as they can. And what it seems that Jaques and Chris did was try to really get cases that could pass muster, that had the proper citations, the proper research, whereas John Keel, he'd come out with a great theory, and that theory may have a lot of providence to it, but you know what? He didn't do the research very well. It's kind of lackadaisical about that.
Yeah, one of the things that the book, I'm just having it's jaw-dropping, some of these ancient cases, and the fact that they're so well documented for the time. One of the things that I noticed in one of the final sections of the book was they debunked some cases that I've always thought were true, such as the Alexander the Great's army and the flying shields at Salamis, I think was the name of the battle. Of course, the Dropa stones we've known for a while was a fairly elaborate hoax, but there's quite a number of cases that have been touted as being real for many years that they could not back up. And they tried. They looked under every rock and stone, looking for documentation, trying to find the primary source material for some of these reports. And unfortunately, in a number of these, quite a number actually of these sighting reports, they were unable to determine whether these were real or not, and they had to throw them out.
You know, I kind of wonder also if this is one of the reasons why the legends, the Indian legends, which are passed by oral traditions, were not included, because there's no way to really look for the backup. We don't know how accurate the oral citations of an experience from one person to another over decades and hundreds of years.
Yeah, and that is unfortunate. I've done quite a bit of work myself personally, logging some of these folkloric traditions, especially in the Southwest here.
I know, because of the fact that we had that Zuni elder on the show just a few weeks ago. Really engaging gentleman, great stories to tell. But that's obviously a question I have to ask you as someone who has done this sort of research over the years. How do you nail it down if there's nothing in writing to check?
Exactly. It's a catch-22. You really can't. One of the more compelling cases comes from the Lakota tradition, and that is the legend of the White Buffalo Calf Woman. You can nail that one down to approximately, I think, about a 10-year period. I don't think it had enough data points for it to be included in a work like Wonders in the Sky, but there are some Native American cases that actually could be considered. Another element, too, Ray Stanford, who we've had on the show a couple of times, owns some hematite flying saucer-shaped discs that were manufactured by the woodland culture. And because we have physical evidence, something like that, related to an oral tradition might be an example of a oral tradition type event that could be potentially included. But
okay, but I'm going to nail you on a question here, okay? Ray Stanford. Now, of course, he can be a crusty gentleman. We had him on the show last time. He made a promise to work with you to put together a digital recording of this particular sighting he discussed on the show. Kind of missing in action. Where is it?
Yeah, he got his tape deck and he has the software, so I guess I should light a fire under his tailbone and get him to get those posted. And also the EVPs from Michael Esposito, that's another one that we need to get up there for our Paracast forum participants. He does have quite a number of EVPs that we did play on the air, and then there's a whole bunch more that we could put up there. And that would generate, I'm sure, quite a bit of conversation and probably some controversy as well. But, when it comes to physical evidence, there really is no substitute for good research and following up on that research.
That's part of the problem I had also with Ted Phillips, where he had this fledgling website. He was going to talk more about the Marley Woods affair. Unfortunately, the site was started, but I don't think it was ever finished.
Well, that was another question I had for Jaques Vallee. I know Ted just recently on Facebook posted a fairly recent photograph of Vallee and him, and I assume that it was taken at Marley Woods, and he did kind of drop a hint that someone, data analyst specialist, computer scientist, was helping him, and he said, some of you will know who I'm talking about, and I automatically assumed that it was Vallee, but that was another question that we need to keep fresh for the next return visit by Dr. Vallee. I think he had a good time, Gene. I would be tickled to no end to have him back on the show and open up the conversation a little bit and get him riffing. He was a little bit reserved, I think, but
he tends to be that way. You have to kind of make it open up after the second or third hour. He can riff. By the way, we're riffing here on the Paracast. Chris O'Brien's the co-host. I'm Gene Steinberg. This definitely is
the Paracast.
Get 9 hand-picked super-quality graphic apps for your Mac for just $39.99, a 91% discount. These apps include vector drawing, brochure design, smart screen capturing, HDR photo optimizing, preparing photos for print and framing, creating posters, postcards, and lots more, including a bonus DVD library. These are top-rated, best-in-class apps. From now till the end of November, get them all for only $39.99 from radio.macraphoto.com. That's radio.macgraphoto.com.
In this connected world, your Mac needs to be protected from the many threats that come over the internet. But how can you stay up to date with the security issues that now affect Macs? The Mac Security Blog covers all the security threats to Macs, keeps you informed about essential updates to your software, and alerts you when new threats or malware are discovered. Keep your Mac safe. Visit the Mac Security Blog at blog.intego.com. That's blog.intego.com, blog.intego.com.
As many people know, ever since President Nixon took us off the gold standard, the U.S. dollar has been devaluating. What people don't know, however, is how this directly affects your personal finances. Is there a way to protect your portfolios from losing value? The answer to all of this is gold and silver. They both have maintained their purchasing power for 6,000 years. If you had $100,000 in cash and $100,000 in gold and silver back in 1913 and kept them until now, your cash would have the buying power of only $4,800, but your gold and silver would have the buying power of $3 million. The answer to protecting your assets is simple. Call John Ballman today at 1-800-686-2237, extension 169. Get all your questions answered before your money is worth zero. Call 1-800-686-2237, extension 169. Take action today while we still accept paper dollars for gold. That's 1-800-686-2237, extension 169.
Becoming a modern smoker is now easier and more cost-effective thanks to LeSig. Traditional smokers the world over love LeSig. E-cigarettes with a look, feel, and taste of real cigarettes, but without the nasty smoke, ashes, or stains. LeSig is powered by revolutionary microelectronic technology. A small rechargeable battery and unique replaceable cartridge provide all the satisfaction and benefits of smoking without the smoke and all the hazards. See the large variety of LeSig e-cigarette supplies and accessories at LeSig.com. That's LECIG.com. LeSig is competitively priced, comes with the best customer service, a 30-day warranty, and satisfaction guaranteed. What a great gift idea. For a 10% discount, mention GCN when you call 870-518-4307. That's 870-518-4307. Ask for fast, free, same-day shipping. Order online at LeSig.com and use promo code GCN at checkout. That's LECIG.com. LeSig, for today's modern smoker.
What if a natural or man-made disaster forced you to flee your house in a moment's notice? Are you prepared to grab and go? You will be with My Evac Pack, the ultimate survival kit for emergency evacuations, and we mean ultimate. My Evac Pack is an easy-to-carry bag packed with 44 essential food servings and dozens of indispensable get-out-of-town supplies. My Evac Pack comes in two sizes, a backpack or a rolling duffel bag. Both are packed with great-tasting, nutritionally dense, long shelf-life food, plus all kinds of tools and supplies to help you and your family survive just about any kind of survival situation. See the new video and all you get in My Evac Pack at myevacpack.com. Spelled MYEVACPACK.com. myevacpack.com or call 877-327-0365. That's 1-877-327-0365. Get My Evac Pack today because you can't predict when or where an emergency will strike.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
We want to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com. Get in on all the action at forum.theparacast.com.
This is the post-game interview. Kind of like, you have baseball and football, and we have the Paracast post-game affair. We had Dr. Jaques Vallee for about an hour or so. Of course, if you're listening on the radio, it was about an hour and a half, actually. So it consumed about half the show. They have this new book with Chris Aubeck, Wonders in the Sky, an incredible collection of solid data where they really worked hard to sweat the details. And that raises the other big question we have in the UFO field. There's not enough of sweating of the details. So much lackadaisical research, offhand research. This is one of the reasons why, of course, in remembering John Keel, all the good things, the critics were saying, yeah, he had all those good ideas and didn't do his homework.
Yeah, this was a 6-year project that he and Chris have been working on. And boy, I'll tell you, when you start reading this book and you look at the incredible amount of research and detail that's been done here, you have to really be in awe. I mean, I am. I can't wait to get Chris on the show. He seems like a real up-and-coming, very important potential figure in this field if he continues the quality of work in this particular arena. I know he does have other interests as a researcher, but it's very good to hear that he's even named his research project after a portion of Vallee's seminal work, Passport to Magonia.
One of the things I want to consider here, though, with Chris Aubeck and Jaques Vallee and all these people, we're putting together hundreds of cases that hopefully show some consistency or at least some degree of evidence. But how many cases do we have to put together before we sit back and say, okay, what does it mean, folks?
Yeah, exactly. That would be, I think, where I'd love to start, in a return appearance by Vallee. I would love to kind of start from that point and then move forward, because I tried to bring up a few things that he has mentioned and theorized in the past. He pretty skillfully answered the question by by skirting the actual details of the question, but I think it would be a great starting point to really look at this from the point of view. Okay, we have all this data now. What do we do with it, and how do we view it, and what is it telling us?
Well, certainly, if there's a consistency. I mean, if you see airships in the sky, if you see things that seem to mirror the cultural expectations of the particular society they're visiting, then you have to look at other possibilities here. Number one, if it's ET or any kind of extraterrestrial race, it may be that they're perceived in accordance with their beliefs. Ezekiel's wheels, of course, that comes from God in the Bible, because that's what we expected it to be then. Whereas today it's ET because that's our society. But it does not reflect the reality of the phenomenon. That's in and of itself whatever it is. Or it's quantum physics all over again, folks. Whatever we perceive and expect, it gives us back that expectation.
Right, and it's Heisenberg all over again. Just the very fact that we attempt to do that changes it. So, it's a slippery slope, as we've always known, and, we really need more creative, out-of-the-box thinkers in this field to look at this wonderful data that is slowly being accumulated year by year, and look at this stuff, crunch the numbers. Obviously, you've always got to contend with a garbage in, garbage out scenario, but I think we're getting to the point now where data may potentially overwhelm the mystery. I never thought I'd ever hear myself say that, but we're getting closer and closer, I think, every year. And, looking at a book like Wonders in the Sky really does give me hope that there's some up-and-coming, just really diligent, scholarly people who are willing to put the time in, willing to do the work, and willing to help move this whole shooting match forward.
Yeah, of course, we really have to give you credit, Chris O'Brien, because you've done a tremendous amount of field research. You're not somebody who sits in the corner or in the armchair and just writes a book and writes some magazine articles and collects the check and talks about what you've done. You've gone out there in the field. You spent an awful lot of your personal time, given up a lot of your life, I expect, in doing this sort of thing. So as somebody who has done that kind of research, how do we take it to the next level? What do we have to do to figure out what's really going on? We have all the groundwork. I mean, the groundwork has been laid for decades.
Right. Well, again, I've always championed a location-specific approach. I think that there are certain areas on the planet that have a variety and intensity of unusual occurrences that kind of put them ahead of most other places. And I think if we marshal our resources and organize and train, legitimate investigators to monitor these hotspot areas 24/7, I think we stand a much better chance of moving the ball forward. Hence my San Luis Valley Camera Project, Ted Phillips's Marley Woods Project, the NIDS attempt at the Skinwalker Ranch. I think more of these types of programs need to be conceived. We need to get funding. We need to get legitimate science involved. I think Leslie Kean's idea of coming up with a blue ribbon group that is tasked with investigating the better quality cases, I think we're starting to see a movement in that direction. And if we focus on location-specific areas that tend to have, I think, more variety, intensity of unusual events, I think we stand a much better chance of moving forward.
But Chris, do you think the overemphasis still on ET, looking for the space people, maybe that obscures the entire quest because we're narrowcasting, as they say in broadcasting, we're narrowing our approach and excluding too much stuff?
Yeah, we can't go in with any preconceived notions. I think it's really important to have an open mind. You can't factor anything in. You can't factor anything out. You go where the data takes you. And one of the things that I learned early on is most of my preconceptions very quickly I was shown without any room for interpretation. These preconceptions were wrong, and that is what I mentioned earlier, that I really thought that we were dealing with aliens from another planet, but there's so much data that just does not conform to that particular scenario. And I sound like a broken record, I know, to some folks listening to the show, but I can't overstate that enough. We really need to be open-minded. We really need to go where the data leads us.
We can't basically decide where it's going to lead and then look for data that fits into that preconceived notion. And then that raises the other question, too. Do we even know what sort of data we have to collect?
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is John Keel's quote is, to hell with the answer, what's the question?
Well, you know what? That is something we can talk about for the next 6 months. I mean, this has to be, and I'm not going to toot my own horn or our own horn for myself and all the co-hosts who have worked with me since the Paracast started in 2006, and that is we have tried to figure out what questions we should be asking, not just saying, here's a bunch of crazy experiences, folks, and it's fun to talk about. A lot of other shows will say, wow, gosh, gee whiz, listen to all these crazy experiences, listen to all the wild and woolly stuff that's going on out there. Let's bring on the medium du jour, the psychic du jour, put them on the show and have them play some games, and then they'll announce their website and sell some books and some tickets to their lectures and do private readings for lots of money.
It's separating the signal from the noise. That's the motto of the Paracast. I'm just so thrilled to be involved in this.
And a reminder, neighbors, we want to hear from you. Send your letters to news@theparacast.com, news@theparacast.com. Chris O'Brien joins us as co-host. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in
The Paracast.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You can download a version that is mostly full-featured. Try it out, and if you like it, it's just $34.95 for Graphic Converter from lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKESOFT.com. lemkesoft.com for my favorite Graphic Converter.
Is it really possible to get out of debt without payment plans or attorneys? 18 years ago, we developed a program that has made thousands debt-free in just 90 days. It's called Zero Debt in 90 Days, and it works for all credit card debt, medical bills, even collection lawsuits.
When I first joined, I was being sued. So I used the program methods, and after filing one piece of paper, the collection lawsuit was dismissed.
With Zero Debt in 90 days, your success is guaranteed in writing. There is no other program of its kind. Don't be alone when creditors gang up on you. Let our team of experts provide the resources to fight back and stop creditors in only 90 days, guaranteed. Prevent wage garnishments, bank levies, and stop collection calls with our proven program. Call Zero Debt in 90 days now, 800-477-9256, and ask for free information from an expert who also completed our program. 800-477-9256 or ZeroDebtGuaranteed.com. 800-477-9256 or ZeroDebtGuaranteed.com.
Where have all the military surplus stores gone? Don't worry, you don't need one, because everything you need at military surplus is at mainemilitary.com. That's M-A-I-N-E military.com, one of the last surviving true military surplus stores in the country. Go online now to mainemilitary.com and discover a source for hard-to-find surplus items at true surplus prices. Surplus gun cleaning kits as low as $2.99. Complete chemical suits as low as $11.99. See our huge selection of gas masks, filters, and accessories. Finish at M10 gas masks are 3 for $30, and Swiss filters are 3 for $12. Searching for Strike Anywhere matches? MainMilitary.com has them, plus a whole new product line of survival and first aid kits and lots more. Get free shipping on orders over $50 only at MainMilitary.com. That's M-A-I-N-E military.com, or call 877-608-0179, 877-608-0179. MainMilitary.com, the main name in military supply.
Fight back this cold and flu season with the world's best garlic extract, Ali C. Why Ali C? Because it helps your body fight viruses, bacteria, and fungi. Ali C has been scientifically proven in double-blind studies using low doses to greatly reduce the number, severity, and duration of common colds. Ali C contains 300 milligrams of stabilized allicin, the active ingredient in crushed garlic. Studies show Ali C is effective against MRSA, bacterial, fungal, and viral infections. One tablet of Ali C has the equivalent of 40 cloves of garlic. Ali C supports your body's resistance to all types of conditions and can help lower high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So boost your body's resistance to infection with nature's best garlic extract, Ali C. For more information and to order Ali C, call 877-888-7126 or go to garlichealthproducts.com. That's 1-877-888-7126 or go to garlichealthproducts.com for your Ali C today.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
This is Jaques Vallee. You're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
We continue with Chris O'Brien, co-host. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in the Paracast for a couple of more segments. We started out talking shop. We brought on Dr. Jaques Vallee, who raises some very intriguing questions, and one of the areas where he has done such commendable work is that he's one of the few people who was willing to ask questions that nobody considered. When Major Donald Kehoe in the 1950s said, it's E.T. because they exhibit maneuverability far beyond those of mortal men, far beyond what we can do ourselves. You can track them on radar. Sometimes they leave a little bit of trace evidence. Well, it's got to be E.T. What else could it be?
Yeah, well, we've come a long way since the halcyon days of the 50s.
Have we, though? I mean, we still have exopolitics. We still have these people running around saying E.T. is here, or E.T. is going to come tomorrow and land, and it would be the requiem for the UFO.
It's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, but we are making progress. I mean, you keep banging the message long enough and educating folks, getting the younger generation to abandon preconceived notions, to reject the pop culture programming that is just running rampant, especially in regards to the extraterrestrial hypothesis. As soon as we can get a young crop of investigator researchers like Chris Aubeck, like John Greenwald, others who are out there learning how to do this the proper way, I think we are making progress. It's just, we may not see an answer in your lifetime or my lifetime, Gene, but hey, it's a lot of fun. We're moving forward, and there's
Speak
no
for
substitute.
yourself. I'm going to live forever.
Well, me too, but we're all eternal in our own way. So
I've been alive forever, and I wrote the very first song. Of course, it was an off-key song.
Don't sing it.
Please, I don't sing. Not even in the shower. Because if the last time I sung in the shower, it broke the shower.
You know what the most popular song they did a I guess it was a poll of men, and you know what the most popular song that men in America sing in the shower?
Lay it on me. No, that's not the song.
Roxanne by the Police. Roxanne!
Are you joking?
You have to put on your red light.
I never joked, 007. No. Actually, my only imitation, of course, is Liam Neeson in Clash of the Titans. Release the Kraken.
Hey, that wasn't bad.
It wasn't good, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, okay.
But we do have the voice of the trickster. And thank goodness, a very short voice.
Hey, I got that question in, you noticed?
That's right.
He did not apply it to the UFO phenomenon the way I was hoping he would, but that's okay. We're making progress with it.
Where do you expect it to lead? Okay, we dropped the trickster in there, and maybe we threw the ball in Jaques' direction. He didn't really pick up on it. But where do you think we should take it?
Well, again, I think he was the one that brought up the whole idea of the collective unconscious. And, one of the questions I think that needs to be asked is if we are dealing with something that's not extraterrestrial hypothesis based, and it is a closed system phenomenon, then we need to compartmentalize what our particular potential options are. And I think the trickster is a 6,000-pound gorilla sitting in the room that everybody has been in denial. Even Jung himself, in his last book, UFOs, a myth of things seen in the sky, he never mentions the trickster, even though he talks about the absurdities and the potential for collective unconscious manifestation of these things. He never mentions the trickster. Keel never mentioned the trickster. He said these things are trickster-ish or trickster-like. Vallee, I don't think, ever even mentioned the word trickster or tricksterish in any of his works. So, again, I think thinking, from a new oblique angle is there's no substitute for that. And, if my work can inspire just one or two people to take the ball and move it down the field, then I've done my job. And I stand by my theory. I think as my research progresses, as I go further and think about this particular aspect of a potential explanation, the more sense it makes to me. So I'm sure there's lots of people out there that would disagree, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but again, I think it's important to really look at all closed system potential explanations before we go off planet.
Well, okay, let's go back to that, because we did a show with you when you came out with your book, Stalking the Tricksters. Now, I guess in the final sessions of this episode of the Paracast, maybe we can cover this, because we are doing out-of-the-box thinking. In writing Stalking the Tricksters, what were you trying to look for?
I was trying to find commonalities between inexplicable events that happen from prehistory to modern times. I was looking for some sort of correlation that would tie together aspects of these inexplicable types of phenomenal events and phenomenal creatures. And one of the things that ties them all together, the one commonality I was able to discover, is that these beings and these objects and these events tend to feature shape-shifting, going from one form to another, and sometimes back again. And once you look at that commonality, things start to fall, I think, into place a little easier, at least in my thinking. And that was a real breakthrough for me. Prior to that, I think I went through a whole jar of ibuprofen thinking about all this stuff, because when you start talking about liminality and, threshold type phenomenon, amoral, it's neither black or white, young, old, positive or negative, it's really difficult to wrap your head around. But once you get it and you start to apply the whole idea of tricksterism, the idea of toppling static structures, of introducing novelty to break up the status quo in an effort collectively, hopefully, to move culture forward, to progress, to not be caught in stasis, to not be static. Once we start to introduce trickster energy into a static system, it tends to topple that system. It tends to create movement forward. It creates room for change. And
maybe we should have called the book Stalking the Fly in the Ointment.
There you go. As long as there's no Vaseline in there, that sounds good.
No
Is that
comment.
the crowd moaning, or?
I don't want to say. It's late in the evening, and, when I'm going to sigh, my sighs get deeper and deeper as the evening progresses. I become bass, Well,
that was a Talking Heads album, actually, Sand in the Vaseline.
Okay. There you go. Well, that would be a new UFO book. Be the next great UFO book. Where is the next great UFO book? Is this it? Wonders in the Sky? Is there going to be a sequel to Stalking the Tricksters? Is there one in the future? Seriously, Chris, do you see reason to write a sequel?
Yeah, I'm just not sure what you would call it. I guess cornering the trickster, roping the trickster.
The Trickster's Return.
Yeah, or Son of the Trickster. It's
the Tricksters meet the Dark Knight.
Yeah, Trick or Treat. I don't know what I would call something. I would like to come up with a different term than trickster, because I don't think it's an outmoded term that doesn't fully, I think, define what it is that I'm trying to zero in on. But one of the things that I've always said since I've been involved in this investigative work and research is that it's the people like John Keel and Jaques Vallee, Charles Fort. These are the out-of-the-box thinkers that most inspire me, that give me, I guess, my creative gestalt moments. Other people like David Perkins, who we will have on the show, very, very amazing creative thinker.
I'll tell you what, we're going to have one more session here this week. I'm Gene Steinberg. The co-host is Chris O'Brien. You're in
the Paracast.
Hey neighbors, Nuance offers Dragon speech recognition for a variety of platforms. Dragon Dictate for Mac, Dragon Naturally Speaking 11 for Windows, and Dragon mobile apps for BlackBerry, iPhone, and iPad. No matter how you compute, Dragon instantly converts what you say into text, helping you be more productive just by talking. Find out more at getdragon.com. That's getdragon.com. Getdragon.com.
Hi, this is Tamar from Namecheap. We're a domain name and web hosting company, and we really care about our customers. With domain name purchases, Namecheap offers free SSL and free WhoisGuard for a year to protect your identity from spammers. Most importantly, we care about you. If you'd like to learn more, please visit us at radio.namecheap.com, radio.namecheap.com for web hosting and domain name specials. You can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/Namecheap or become a fan of ours on Facebook at facebook.com/Namecheap. See you online.
Question: what would you rather drink? Acidic water, which burns holes in your body and causes loss of bone mass, or alkaline water, which promotes high energy and vibrant health? The answer is clear. And if you're drinking acidic water, you're helping cancer cells and bacteria to grow out of control. AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops combine a unique formula of the most alkaline minerals. Using Plasma pH Drops is the best way to alkalize your water and help you get rid of acid and regain your health and energy. Simply put 10 drops in the water you drink to raise the pH to a healthy alkaline level. Most experts agree that the water you drink should be at a pH level of 8 or higher. Disease organisms like bacteria, viruses, or cancer cannot survive in an alkaline high pH environment. Order your bottle of AlkaVision Plasma pH Drops now by going directly to alkavision.com. That's ALKAvision.com. Or by calling 269-409-1776. Again, 269-409-1776.
You may not be thinking of lead and brass as precious metal investments. And you may not be thinking about ammo when we say Battery Station, but you should, because Battery Station has a large inventory of the most popular calibers. Just go to batterystation.com and click on ammunition. There, you'll see where Second Amendment patriots invest in precious metals for .380, 9mm, 40 cal, 45 ACP, 38 Special, 357 Magnum, 223, 30-06, 308, and more. Be sure to look for the October GCN specials in blue boxes, too, at batterystation.com.
We shoot what we sell, and all battery station ammo is all factory, no reloads. You'll enjoy great customer service, great prices, and fast shipping. Plus, all orders over $30 will receive a free patriotic flag. So invest in gold and silver, but don't forget about investing in lead and brass, too, at batterystation.com. Call 417-257-7799 or go to batterystation.com today.
In a coming-apart world, you need something to keep it tied together. That something is Atwood Rope, the highest quality rope made in the USA, from exotic braids for military, rescue, arborists, shipyards, tow line, or boating. Quality rope at affordable prices you and your customers can depend on. Find a dealer or shop online at atwoodrope.net. Enter promo code RADIO to receive 100 feet of 550 paracord free with purchase. Atwood Rope, working to keep the world tied together.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
On air, online, and on demand. We are the GCN Radio Network.
You're in the Paracast. You never know what's going to happen next.
Sounds like he was saying the Paracast because of that voice. Chris O'Brien's the co-host. I'm Gene Steinberg. You're in the Paracast. How's that? I should have done my voice with echo, infused with echo. In fact, that's a good book, Infused with Echo, starring or movie, or Echo from the Stars, Attack of the Rockoids. No, I wrote that already.
Echo of the Trickster.
Well, there's a sequel to the Stalking the Tricksters, Echo of the Tricksters. But do you think that maybe some of the people who didn't buy that kind of story, didn't buy that kind of explanation, maybe the title Tricksters kind of put them off?
That's possible. What can you do? You can just give it your best shot. That was a title. It just came out of the ethers. I jumped on it. It was based on a title of a as yet to be published work that I've been researching for many years. The working title was Stalking the Herd, which was, I kind of look at it as Wonders in the Sky but in the cattle unusual livestock death phenomenon. But so I borrowed the Stalking the Herd sort of approach for a title and put Trickster in there instead.
Okay, so let's look at this, though. When you get up with something that's a stuff of legend, like the Trickster, archetypes, whatever, how do you nail something like that down scientifically?
That's a very good question. I think there's ways to do it. Again, I think if we look at location-specific spots on the map, there are ways to, model your approach to take into account absurdity, to take into account the inexplicable, to take into account data that doesn't quite conform to what you would expect it to conform. And if you can replicate those results, then you can create, I think, a workable hypothesis, or at least support a workable hypothesis, and then move forward with it.
Okay, neighbors, we don't have a lot of time left. With Chris O'Brien, we're doing the post-game or post-mortem of the show. I think a post-game report is better than a post-mortem, right?
Yeah.
So,
correct.
Okay, now, maybe we should bring people up to date with a progress report. You got the webcams set up. Where do you go from there?
Well, again, we're taking it one step at a time. The software development process is moving ahead. We have two very talented software designers who are working on getting our target acquisition, image recognition, triangulation, getting all these cameras synchronized together, and we're going to take them one camera at a time. We have the second camera going in this coming week. We have a recording, a tri-field meter that'll be situated exactly halfway between two cameras, and then we're going for another 2-week data stream where we're going to be recording 24/7 for 2 weeks. We also have a cattle very suspicious, unusual livestock death case that occurred either the night of the 9th or the early morning of the 10th of November of this month. And I posted on the forums some photograph of the case. So we do have activity, which is pretty rare for the San Luis Valley during the colder months. So this may be, again, like last year, a very active winter. Last winter proved to be one of the most active winters in the past 18 years, to my knowledge. And so we're hoping for enough activity to go ahead and be able to synchronize 2 cameras with timestamps to record single events. So once we get the second camera up, then in the spring we'll be going with the third camera, and we're walking before we run. We're really we're crossing the the T's and dotting the I's in this, and continuing the development of the software,
and hoping that maybe this will be something where we can actually watch.
Exactly. Yeah, we had streaming video for 2 weeks, and we did record, I think, about 650 gigs worth of data. We're going to be recording as I said, 2-week stint here in the coming month or so of images from 2 cameras looking at each other from about 60 miles away from each other.
Well, that's one of the questions I have too. If you're recording 650 gigs of data, and we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, a fairly decent-sized hard drive. Now, if you're doing this for a couple of years, you've got to have a lot of places to store data, or do you recycle after a while?
Well, yeah, that's just it. We're going to be recording data, and we will have, I think, a 20-day, ideally about a 3-week rollover period. So day 22 will erase day 1, that sort of thing. But with the software, if an event is triggered, then we will go into a second record mode, which will then record the actual event itself instead of recording 24/7. Which we will be doing anyway, just as a backup. So, with the amount of storage now, I mean, you can get a 3 terabyte drive for $200 now. So, the cost of technology is coming down rapidly. So, it's very doable. Our problem